When was the last time you believed you were invincible? Most of us, at some point in our lives, when we were young, maybe we thought that we were indestructible or unstoppable, or maybe your word was super. When I was a kid, I would run around the house. I would put a towel around my neck. I would climb up on chairs and couches, dining room tables, and every time I climbed up, I would shout at the top of my lungs, "I am invincible!" Oh, what would it be like for you to feel invincible today? Because that is exactly what I want to do. I want to help you be invincible when it comes to growing your sales. And the way we're going to do that is by going through some simple steps to help you reach key line of business decision makers and move them to buy now. Now, if you think about it, if you were reaching line of business decision makers and you were moving those decision makers to buy now, wouldn't that help you feel invincible? Hi, my name is Mark Steele, and on this channel, we help you sell with confidence, lead with purpose, and speak with impact. I am a professional speaker, I'm a sales consultant, and I'm a best-selling author. And I work with groups almost every single day, even in today's challenging times, to help them grow their sales, to be able to connect and feel more connected with their customers, as well as to speak with impact. And I want to share a couple things with you today that you can do to help you be able to achieve those results. And one of the nice things is that the same things that I'm going to share with you today will also help you maximize your customer conversations, which means that every time you meet with your customers, you're going to be moving that sales cycle forward. It'll help you feel more confident because you'll feel more prepared, and it'll help you use your time more effectively because when you are meeting with your customers, you are going to be moving them, connecting with them even better, and moving them towards the goal that you're working towards. Now, the first most important question you have to ask yourself is, do you want to grow your sales? Now, most of us would say yes to this question. Most of us want to grow our sales. Most of us want to be more connected and engaged with our customers. The way in which we do that, there are some fundamental things that we can do, that we all can do every time that we're meeting with them. And think about today's challenges, right? More often than not, we're actually, as a salesperson, or even as a leader leading a team, we're no longer meeting face to face with our customers. Most of the time, the conversations that we're having are just like we're having right now, via video over, a teleconferencing app of some sort. And so it's very important that we still find ways to be able to connect with our customer, to be able to show them that we understand their needs, and more importantly, help them feel more comfortable by building trust with them. So what are some of the key things in which we do? Well, in my recent book, also called Invincible Success, I wrote about 6 key principles. I want to share with you the first two key principles. And Invincible principle number one is to create intentional connection. And what do I mean by intentional connection? I mean that not just connection for connection's sake. For example, oftentimes I'm sure this happens to you as well. When we're cold calling, or we're just sending out an email blast, we're just looking, we're grasping at straws. We're trying to just create any type of connection. But without question, we're far more effective when we're intentional about that connection that we're trying to build. And some of the ways in which we do that, I talk about three key things that you can do to build intentional question. First, we need to learn everything that we can about that customer or potential customer. And what I like to say is, if I want to earn, first I must learn. And there are key ways in which we can learn. Two key things. I ask you right now, feel free to put it in the chat window. What are two key traits to learning? Go ahead and drop your answer in. Two key traits. What two key traits do you think that we most utilize when trying to learn something? Often, you're probably right, you're thinking it, regardless of whether you're putting it in the chat or not. The two key traits is number one, listening. And number two, to go right along with that, asking questions. So let's talk a little bit about listening. We hear it. We say, you need to listen to your customer. And most of us think that we are great listeners. But more often than not, when we're listening, we're actually formulating our response. And so instead, when I work with a client, what I help them understand, or I challenge them, is to play a little game with you. Test yourself. That right after a meeting, right after an introductory call with your customer, I challenge you to take 5 minutes and write down as much of what they said as possible. And that would sort of test you on how much you listened to listen, or to show that you're listening, or how much you listened to truly understand what they were saying. So go ahead and try that the next time that you're having a conversation with someone, whether it's a spouse or a friend, or whether you meet with a customer. Challenge yourself to try to write down as much as you can about what they told you. So that will help reinforce that listening to understand. But there's another key part of listening, which is empathy, is truly understanding their pain. And we hear it, right? You've heard that. I'm not the first person to say that we need to have empathy towards those that we're trying to do business with. But even though we're often told that, do we really put that into practice? And I used to work for Microsoft, one of the largest organizations in the world. And I saw firsthand the true power of empathy. If you are aware of Microsoft in any way, 10 years ago, the company was stagnant. The customers were not enthusiastic. They were struggling in the marketplace. And then Satya Nadella took over in 2014. And I got to have firsthand account of the power of empathy, because he called it one of the most important things, one of the most important elements in our connection to our customer. And in fact, he saw it as the key way that we realize, that we understand our customers' unmet, unarticulated needs. And because of that, the leadership and the sales teams were educated, were coached on how to truly develop empathy when meeting with customers. And the results are very clear that since Satya took over, Microsoft has grown. Their sales have been bigger than ever before, and they're one of the most recognizable brands in the world today. Much of that is because of that focus on empathy. When you're meeting with your customer, write down immediately afterwards what that customer told you. And make sure that those first meetings, those introductory conversations, are about them, about getting to know them better and their needs better, versus talking about you and your products or services. And then to go right along with that, we talk about asking, becoming great at asking questions. Not all of us are great at asking questions. And so I challenge you to what I like to call become a master discoverer. I want you to take time, maybe even set on your calendar, first thing in the morning or just before you quit at the end of the day, 5 minutes. And I want you to write down key questions that you can be asking your potential customers. Sometimes those are broad questions that every single one of your customers should be asked. And sometimes those questions may be very specific to only one customer. But write them down. Use a tool like Evernote or OneNote, or just somewhere handy where you're going to be able to see those notes, those questions that you wrote down, the next time that you're on a call with your customer. Well, that's my challenge to you, is to really think of yourself as a master discoverer. And that will help you become great at asking questions and help you also become great at better listening to understand and feel your customer's pain. And that is how you create intentional connection. The next key component that I work with my customers and clients on is really all around building lasting trust. And there are 4 key components to building trust. As you know, trust is very important. And in fact, one person that I interviewed for my book, his name is Chris Sakalowski, and he runs a multi-million-dollar healthcare organization for a well-known brand. And he talked about trust being so hard to earn and yet so easy to lose. And we want to make sure that everything that we're doing, every time that we're interacting with our customer or those we serve, that we are reinforcing and building trust. We do that through 4 key ways. One is our ability. Certainly, we need to know what we're talking about. We need to have a certain sense of expertise, and that's really around continuous learning and being connected to the right people, having access to individuals within your organization or partners or whomever it may be that can help you answer questions for your customer and be able to provide value. And that doesn't mean you need to know it all, but you certainly need to be able to connect to people that can get the answers that are needed. Second important element of building trust is consistency. Being able to, your customer needs to be able to count on you. So if you say you're going to make a particular meeting, then be there. If you're going to follow up on an item, make sure that you follow up on that. One success step that I would encourage you to have is put a regular meeting. Set a regular meeting on your customer's calendar or potential customer's calendar that once a month we'll get together and we'll only talk about the things that you, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, want to talk about. That's just one way in which you can show consistently. Integrity is very important, of course, and there's a couple of elements to integrity. It's about being genuine. It's not about being fake or trying to put on a personality that you don't really have. And then it's around being honest. Don't make promises that you can't keep. Don't say that your product or service will do something when you aren't exactly sure that it will do that. So make sure that you have integrity in all that you do. And finally, responsibility. You can be responsible in all facets that affect that customer. That doesn't mean that you are responsible for making sure that everything gets done. We certainly have lots of responsibilities on our plate already. But you can be responsible for whatever happens in regards to your customer. If somebody else screws up, you take responsibility for that and do what you can to make it right. If your customer has a question, even if it's somebody else that on your team that is ultimately the one that will answer that question, you take responsibility for making sure that that answer happens. Even if you are not the primary account executive or the face for that particular or your organization with that customer, each individual member on that team can and should be taking responsibility for their role in making sure that those customers' needs are being met. So with those four elements, your ability, your consistency, your integrity, and taking responsibility, by reinforcing those with every interaction, that is how you will build lasting trust with your customer. If you found this helpful, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. I'll be going live with more helpful tips. I'll be talking about other principles from my book. I'm going to be interviewing guests. We'll be talking to sales directors and sales leaders and sharing their tips with you. So make sure that you subscribe so that you will be notified the next time we go live. And I look forward to talking to you very soon and helping you reach invincible success.